Hello, I'm Susan Street, the owner of Vintage Jewelry Supplies Company. I'm so glad you've joined me today. I'm going to share with you some of my tips and techniques that I've used for many years to make jewelry. The first thing you're going to need to know is how to measure. Everything in jewelry components are pretty much measured in metric. This is a size guide that we send to all of our customers if your package is such that we can send it without it getting too damaged. This is a guide that you can lay cabochons on to decide what size they are. It's a nice, quick, handy tip sheet to keep near your work table. It shows you basic shapes and about how many beads come in a strand. And the metric and inch calculation has been the most helpful for a lot of people. So if you need a new one of these, you can just email me and I'll send you one with your next order. This is another item that we just recently got that's very handy. You can keep this on your work desk as well. It's clear so that you can place it over the bead or cabochon and see what you're doing and measure it by inches or by metric. And it's hard, so you could use it as a straight edge if you needed to. Those are also available on our website. Another thing you're going to need is a caliper. This is a brass 2-part measuring guide that will be very helpful for you. It's called a caliper, and you just adjust by sliding this part forward by this little bead. You can place beads or cabochons or whatever you want to measure inside and close it, and it will tell you approximately what size you have in the measuring. So this particular item is about an 11 millimeter vintage bead. So you would know that bead caps would need to fit on an 11 to a 12 millimeter bead. Some of the other things that we have up here that you might find helpful, these are long nose tweezers, and they're also called diamond tweezers. You can use these when you're using a 6000 glue. After you've initially put two pieces together, say for instance a piece of filigree on a brass piece, there will be some little beads of E6000 that will seep through the filigree, and people often ask me, how do I get this off? This is the greatest tool ever. You can keep these handy, and when the glue has set for about an hour or two, just go back and pull the little beads off, and you'll still usually have a really good hold, and you don't have to worry about that. But when you check again, you can re-glue it if you need to. This is a needle tool that comes with a nice wooden handle, and this is also indispensable because you can untangle chain. You can pick up little tiny beads and put them in place. You can use it to pick away glue if it's showing. I just have always used these. They're very handy. Another tool that you can get is a flush cutter when you need to cut something very close to the source. Let's say, for example, you're cutting a loop off of a stamping or a setting, and you want to get as close to the brass main part as you can. A flush cutter is really good for that. These tools that I'm telling you about are just craftsman tools that you can go to Sears and buy. You don't really need fancy tools, high-end fancy special tools. You can just go to the Sears tool department. They have craftsman tools. They're guaranteed. They have a nice padded handle, very comfortable to use. Look for the ones with the gold handles. They are guaranteed for life, like all the craftsman tools. This is a side cutter, and it's you use that when you want to cut wire or chain, a variety of things. Everyone needs a side cutter. This is a flat nose plier, which you would use if you didn't want to mar the brass or the wire that you're working with. Brass is a rather soft composite material that will mar easily. That's one of the great things about using it for stampings. It can easily be formed into the shape that you want it to be with the proper equipment, tool, and dies. Another thing I like to use these pliers for, they have a nice, smooth, padded handle. When I'm closing prongs on like for instance, the turtle settings, if I'm closing a prong on the stone, it's a padded, smooth surface to use to just gently push the prong to the stone without causing any damage. Another thing that I like to use is, this is a plier with a teeth, and you can hold on and pull, say you're wrapping wire or something else, but the teeth give you a little bit more power to hold on. So I'll show you how that gets used as well. And my last and favorite tool is a bail making tool. It's also used to make loops. It's got one concave nose and one cone-shaped nose, and depending on where you lay the wire, you can make your loop larger or smaller. And I will show you how that works. For right now, I want to show you the proper way to open and close a jump ring. These are also called O-rings. Whenever you're making a connection, for instance, if you're using, putting a connector to a pendant, or if you're connecting beads on a strand, you want to use a jump ring or an O-ring. We call them jump rings. Don't try to open them any other way because it's really hard. It loses its shape and it's hard to get it back together. Open it this way, side to side, and close it that way. And that way it keeps its nice round shape, and you have a strong jump ring that hasn't lost its integrity, because when you open it by pulling one side out, it's really difficult to get that nice smooth round shape again. All right, the next thing I'm going to show you is how to use bead caps and a head pin. When you're putting together your components, you want to layer them, make them look interesting. It's in the very beginning, it's easy to just use one or two elements to put together while you're learning the technique. But when you get a little bit better at it, you want it to look really unusual and high-end and give your pieces a unique look. One way I found to do this is to combine head pins, layer them so that you get a different effect. On the beads that we sell that are Czechoslovakian glass or Swarovski, their holes are going to be nice and smooth and clean, and you won't have to worry about it. But sometimes if you buy gemstone beads or plastic beads, there's a lot of variety out there. They may not have a very clean hole, and it may not be very pretty. So you would want to use a bead cap to cover that imperfection so that your piece looks more finished and more professional. I like to load on a few different bead caps so that you get a unique look. We're going to try these for now. You load them on a head pin, and then you'll take your loop forming tool and start as close to where you put your last bead cap as possible and form a loop, and then gently work your way around to make sure there's a smooth, nice O or a loop at the very top. I hold it in place with the loop forming tool, and then just wrap the tail around itself so that you anchor the bead caps and the bead firmly on the head pin. And then you take a side cutter and you cut off that little tail, and then you take your needle nose pliers and close that little tail as close as you can to the top of the last bead cap that you formed. It's really easier than it looks. And there's your finished product. You're ready to add it on to a connector or an earring finding. I hope you have lots of fun creating your own jewelry, and we will join you again very soon for another video. And I hope you've enjoyed this one. Have a great day.